Thanks for clicking on this video. I really appreciate you being here. If you enjoy the story, consider subscribing and feel free to like the video or drop a comment below. It really helps the algorithm recommend these videos to you and to others who might enjoy them too. Either way, thanks for giving it a chance, and I hope it pulls you in. I moved back to Ashford 3 months ago, right after graduating college. It wasn't my first choice. Hell, it wasn't even on my list. But my parents needed someone to house sit while they visited my sister in Oregon for a few weeks. And my job prospects in the city had dried up faster than I'd like to admit. So there I was, 23 years old, sleeping in my childhood bedroom and working part-time at Morrison's hardware store downtown. The storm warning started on a Monday. Big one coming, they said. Stock up on supplies, charge your devices, maybe fill your bathtub with water just in case. I'd been through plenty of storms growing up in Ashford, so I wasn't too worried. I grabbed some extra batteries and a few frozen pizzas and called it good. That Friday night, I stayed up late playing video games. The wind was already picking up outside, rattling the windows in that way that makes old houses creak and groan. Around 11:30, I finally decided to call it a night. I brushed my teeth, changed into sweatpants, and climbed into bed. At exactly midnight, the siren started. It wasn't like the tornado sirens I remembered from childhood. Those had a rising and falling wail that set your teeth on edge. This was different. Lower, more mechanical. It had a rhythm to it, like a heartbeat, but wrong somehow. Off-kilter in a way that made my skin crawl. I grabbed my phone and checked for emergency alerts. Nothing. No texts, no notifications, no automated warnings about the storm. I opened the weather app. Yeah, the storm was coming, but it wasn't supposed to hit until tomorrow afternoon. The siren kept going. I got out of bed and looked out my window. Every house on Maple Street was dark. Not just lights off dark, but completely dark. No porch lights, no glow from TVs, nothing. The street lights were on, casting everything in that weird orange glow, but the houses themselves looked abandoned. I watched for 10 minutes. The whole time, that siren kept wailing. Then, right at 10 minutes, it stopped, just cut off mid-wail, like someone had flipped a switch. The silence afterward was somehow worse than the noise. I tried to go back to sleep, but my brain wouldn't shut off. I kept thinking about how all my neighbors had turned off their lights, every single one of them. Like they'd all gotten the same memo that I'd somehow missed. Around 2 in the morning, I finally passed out. The next day at work, I mentioned it to Frank, the older guy who'd been working at Morrison's since before I was born. He was showing me how to cut keys when I brought it up. Hey, did you hear that siren last night? Around midnight? Frank's hand stopped moving. He didn't look at me, just stared down at the key he was holding. Probably just testing the system, he said after a moment. At midnight? During a storm warning? Sometimes they do that. He finished cutting the key and handed it to me. Here, go test this in the practice log. I could tell he didn't want to talk about it, so I dropped it. But the way he'd frozen when I asked, the way he wouldn't meet my eyes, it stuck with me. That night, I made sure to stay awake until midnight. The siren started right on time. Same sound, same rhythm. I was already dressed and had my shoes on. I grabbed my phone and a flashlight and headed outside. The street was empty. Every house had gone dark again, but this time I could see the faint blue glow of televisions through windows. People were home. They were awake. They just weren't turning on any lights. I looked over at Mrs. Young's house next door. She was standing at her living room window, completely still. I waved at her, even called out her name, but she didn't move, didn't even blink, just stood there, staring out into the darkness. My stomach twisted. I started walking toward downtown, toward where the sound seemed to be coming from. The streets were completely empty. No cars, no people, nothing. The siren echoed off the buildings, making it hard to tell exactly where it was coming from. But I knew the general direction. I'd made it about 3 blocks when I felt it. This overwhelming urge to turn around, to go home. It wasn't fear, exactly. It was like my body was rejecting the idea of going forward. Like every cell was screaming at me to turn back. I tried to push through it, but it got stronger with each step. By the time I'd gone another half block, my hands were shaking, and I felt like I was going to throw up. The siren stopped. The feeling disappeared immediately, like a switch had been flipped. I stood there for a minute, catching my breath, then headed home. The next day, I tracked down my friend Cameron. We'd been tight in the high school, and he still lived in town, working at his dad's insurance office. I showed up at his apartment around lunch. "Can we talk?" I asked when he opened the door. He looked uncomfortable but let me in. His apartment was small, messy, the kind of place that screams, "I'm barely keeping it together." We sat on his couch, and I told him about the siren. Cameron wouldn't look at me. He kept picking at a loose thread on his jeans. "It's just the old civil defense system," he said. "They test it sometimes." "At midnight? 2 nights in a row?" "Look, Dylan." He finally met my eyes, and I saw something there. Fear, maybe, or resignation. "Just stay inside when it happens. It's better that way." "Better how? What's going on?" He shook his head. "I can't. Just trust me, okay? Stay inside." I tried to push him, but he clammed up. After a few more minutes of awkward silence, I left. That afternoon, I went to the public library. It's one of those old Carnegie libraries, built sometime in the early 1900s with high ceilings and that musty book smell that never quite goes away. I asked the librarian if they had old newspapers on file. She directed me to the basement, where they kept everything on microfilm. I started with recent years and worked backward. It took me 2 hours to find the first reference. It was from 1973, a small article buried on page 7 of the Ashford Daily Register, Curfew Siren Reminder. The article was weirdly vague, just mentioning that residents should remain indoors during the safety siren, and that this was a long-standing community measure. I kept searching, found another article from 1978, this one about a family, the Hendersons, who'd violated curfew. The article didn't explain what that meant, just said they'd left town. But there was something off about the wording. It didn't say they moved away. It said they were no longer residents of Ashford. There was no follow-up article, no explanation. It just ended there. I spent another hour searching, but couldn't find anything else useful. The articles about the siren were always brief, always vague. always treating it like something everyone just understood. That night, I decided I was done playing it safe. I dressed in warm clothes, made sure my phone was fully charged, and grabbed my flashlight. When midnight came and the siren started, I headed straight downtown. This time, I pushed through that feeling of wrongness, gritting my teeth and forcing myself forward. The downtown area of Ashford isn't much. A few blocks of old storefronts, a diner, a bank, the town hall. At the center is a square with some benches and an old gazebo. And in the middle of the square stands the Civil Defense Siren Tower, a relic from the Cold War era. As I got closer, I started seeing people. They were coming from all directions, walking toward the square. Their movements were stiff, mechanical, like puppets being pulled by strings. Their faces were blank, eyes staring straight ahead. I recognized some of them. Frank from the hardware store, Mrs. Young from next door, the woman who worked at the post office. About 30 people in total, all converging on the tower. I tried to talk to them, called out to Frank, but none of them responded. They just kept walking. They gathered around the base of the tower. That's when I noticed the door. I'd been to this square dozens of times growing up, and I'd never seen a door at the base of that tower. But there it was, a heavy metal door with a simple handle. One by one, the people opened the door and descended into darkness. I hid behind a storefront, watching. The siren was deafening this close, vibrating in my chest. I counted as each person disappeared through that door. 32 total. When the siren stopped, the door stayed open. I waited for them to come back out. 5 minutes passed. 10. 15. No one emerged. My hands were shaking as I approached the door. I looked down and saw stairs leading into darkness. I turned on my flashlight and started descending. The stairs went down, and down, and down. I counted floors in my head. 10 flights, 20, 30. Way deeper than should be possible. The stairs finally ended at a large metal door. I pushed it open. The chamber beyond was huge. The walls were concrete, lined with old equipment that looked like it was from the 1950s. There were rusted filing cabinets, old civil defense posters peeling off the walls, broken chairs. But in the center of the room was something that definitely hadn't been built in the 50s. A large cylindrical tank, maybe 15 feet across, filled with dark water. The people from town were standing in a circle around it, completely still. As I watched, Frank stepped forward. He climbed onto the edge of the tank and without hesitating, dropped into the water. He didn't swim, didn't struggle. He just sank beneath the surface and disappeared. The water didn't even ripple. "No!" I shouted, running forward. The next person in line was already moving toward the tank. It was Mrs. Young. I grabbed her arm, trying to pull her back, but she was strong, stronger than she should have been. She turned to look at me, and for just a second, I saw recognition in her eyes. "It's better this way," she whispered. Then she climbed into the tank and sank. I tried to reach into the water, tried to pull her out, but she was gone. The water was completely still, like glass. I couldn't even see the bottom. One by one, the others followed, each person stepping forward, climbing in, disappearing. I was screaming, trying to stop them, but they wouldn't acknowledge me, couldn't acknowledge me. That's when I heard footsteps on the stairs behind me. More people were coming. I panicked and hid behind some old equipment in the corner. Another group descended, maybe 15 people this time. They joined the circle and, one by one, entered the tank. While I was hiding, I noticed a clipboard hanging on the wall. I grabbed it, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped it. It was a list of names. Each name had a check mark next to it. The list was organized by date, going back months, years. I flipped through the pages. They went back decades. Some weeks had 5 or 6 names. Some had just 1 or 2. I found today's date. All the names I'd recognized were there, checked off. I flipped to the next page. Tomorrow's date. 6 names, including Cameron's. My blood went cold. I kept flipping. Found my name 3 weeks from now. Dylan Morrison. No checkmark yet. At the top of the first page was a handwritten note. Quota, minimum 40 per month. Behind me, I heard something in the water. A sound like something large displacing liquid. I didn't look back. I grabbed the clipboard and ran. I took the stairs 2 at a time, my flashlight beam bouncing wildly. Behind me, I could hear wet sounds, like something dragging itself across concrete. I didn't stop, didn't look back. I burst out of the door into the square. Another group of people was arriving, walking in that same mechanical way toward the tower. I ran past them, clutching the clipboard to my chest. I didn't stop running until I was home. I locked every door, every window. Then I sat at the kitchen table and really looked at the clipboard. The list went back to 1952. Page after page of names, thousands of them. The quota was never missed. 40 people per month, minimum. Sometimes more, never less. There were notations in the margins. Phrases like good yield and quota met early. One page from 1967 had a note. Reminder, never fall below minimum. Consequences severe. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I tried to leave Ashford. I packed a bag, got in my car, and headed for the highway. I made it about 10 miles before the road started looking weird, familiar. I realized I was back on Maple Street, pulling up to my house. I tried again. Same thing. No matter which road I took, I ended up back home. My car broke down on the 3rd attempt. I had it towed back to Morrison's garage. When the mechanic looked at it, he said there was nothing wrong with it. Started right up. I tried calling my parents. My phone wouldn't connect. Just gave me a weird error message. But when I tried calling Cameron, it went through fine. Cameron showed up at my door that evening. I hadn't called him, hadn't texted him. He just showed up. You went down there, he said. It wasn't a question. I didn't answer, didn't need to. You shouldn't have seen that, he continued. He looked tired, defeated. Now it's complicated. Complicated? Cameron, what the hell is going on? He came inside without being invited and sat on the couch. For a long time, he didn't say anything. Then, everyone in Ashford knows. We've all always known. Our parents knew. Their parents knew. The founders of this town made a deal with something that was already here. Something old. It lives under the town. Has for longer than anyone can remember. What is it? I don't know. No one knows. But it needs to be fed. 40 people a year minimum. In exchange, the town prospers. We're safe from disasters. Our crops always grow. Businesses succeed. The town has never had a major fire, never been hit by a tornado, never had any real tragedy. People live long lives here. It's a good trade. A good trade? I felt sick. 40 people die every year, and you think that's a good trade? Out of 4,000 people? Yeah, those are good odds. Better than most places have. Why don't people leave? They can't. Once you're born here, you're part of it. You can leave for college, for work, for a little while. But you always come back. And once you're on the list, he stopped looking at me. Your name is on the list. 3 weeks from now. I saw yours too. Tomorrow night. His face went pale. I know. We can fight this. We can... No, we can't. His voice was flat. People have tried. The Hendersons in 73, the McAllisters in 89. Others. They all ended up in the tank eventually. Fighting just makes it worse. For everyone. He stood up to leave. At the door, he turned back. You can run, but you'll come back. Everyone comes back. Just accept it, Dylan. It's easier that way. That night, at midnight, the siren started. I watched from my window as Cameron walked down the street, along with 5 others I didn't recognize. Their movements were stiff, automatic. Cameron looked up at my window as he passed, and for a moment, our eyes met. Then he turned the corner and was gone. I spent the next 3 weeks trying everything. I tried to leave town dozens of times. I always ended up back at my house. I tried to tell outsiders about what was happening. Tourists passing through, a delivery driver, anyone. But whenever I tried to explain, the words wouldn't come. My mouth would move, but nothing would come out. I tried to destroy the tower, bought bolt cutters, a sledgehammer, even considered burning it down. But every time I got close, that feeling would hit me, that overwhelming compulsion to turn back. And unlike that first night, I couldn't push through it anymore. It was too strong. I watched the list. Every night, right at midnight, the siren would call, and people would go. Sometimes people I knew, sometimes strangers. But the list never stopped. 40 per month, minimum. Always. My parents called once, asked how I was doing, if I was taking care of the house. I wanted to scream at them, to ask them how they could have left me here, how they could have never warned me. But the words wouldn't come. I just said everything was fine. They said they'd be home in a few more weeks. A few more weeks. After my date. I realized then that they knew. They'd known the whole time. That's why they left when they did. They didn't want to be here when it happened. Tonight is my night. It's 11:30 right now. I'm sitting at the kitchen table, writing this on my laptop. I don't know why. Maybe because I need someone to know what really happened. Maybe because I'm hoping someone will find this and get out before it's too late. I can already feel it starting. That pull, like a hand pressing against my chest, urging me toward the door. The storm they warned about 3 weeks ago never came. Of course it didn't. Nothing bad ever happens to Ashford. 11:45. My legs are starting to move on their own. Small movements, like my body is preparing itself. I want to fight it, but I know it won't matter. I've watched dozens of people walk to that square over the past 3 weeks. They all tried to resist at first. It never works. 11:50. I'm thinking about my parents, about my sister, about the life I was supposed to have, the job I was supposed to get, the places I was supposed to see. All of it gone because I came home to house sit for a few weeks. 11:55. I can hear it now, even though it hasn't started yet. That deep, rhythmic pulse, like a heartbeat, wrong and off-kilter and hungry. 11:58. My hand is reaching for the door handle. I'm not telling it to. It just is. 11:59. If you're reading this, don't come to Ashford. If you're from here, leave and never come back. Maybe you can escape if you're young enough, if you haven't been on the list yet. Maybe. Midnight. The siren calls and Ashford answers. It always has. It always will. And now, it's my turn to pay the price for being home.